Andy Lennox, coming to us from the restaurant down in Bournemouth. Welcome to the show, Andy.
Hey, how are you doing? You're
all happy. So, Andy, you started off with a degree in archaeology. How does that play any part in becoming a restaurant owner and entrepreneur?
Yeah, well, not very much, but I studied at Southampton University, yeah, it didn't really do anything for me for the restaurant industry. But you know what, as a degree goes, it was really good, and you know, it taught me a lot of kind of motivational stuff and how to basically, you know, study and kind of apply the mind. But yeah, nothing to help the industry, sadly.
So did you use any of it at all?
Not really. I mean, history wise, you know, I think the degree was history and archaeology. I always studied history. It was probably one of the things I was good at. And I kind of fell into hospitality whilst at university. Well, I mean, I think my first job was when I was 14 as a potato peeler, but you know, at a KP. But yeah, I did it all the way through university, and just kind of fell into that afterwards, really. You know, it hasn't really borne any relation to my job career, but and it's one of those things that people ask me. I do quite a lot of mentoring, and it's one of those things that people ask me, you know, why go and do a degree, or should I go and do a degree, or is it the right thing, and how does it help you? And you know, I think changing, and I think, you know, you can now do hospitality degrees and stuff like that, which I think is really good. But you know, it's always something to fall back on. You know, if all goes, I can go and be a history teacher. So you know, it's good to have.
Yeah, Andy, you're an award-winning entrepreneur and restaurateur. Have you got any thoughts on what's needed to win these such prestigious accolades, or what did you do to achieve these?
Well, supposedly for me, it's, you know, generally I get the accolades, but you know, it's actually because we've just got an amazing team underneath us that basically actually work so hard to be able to achieve them. I mean, you know, my first brand, you know, Cotai, won Brand of the Year, Employer of the Year. I won Entrepreneur of the Year, but you know, you win Entrepreneur of the Year because you know, the team below you are working so hard. So I think the main thing for us is your team. You know, have a bloody good team underneath you, and you know, you can go and do amazing things, really. You know, Entrepreneur of the Year comes off the back of basically having a successful restaurant group, and that successful restaurant group comes off the back of winning Brand of the Year and Employer of the Year. And you know, probably like my proudest moment was when we won, or both of those actually, Employer of the Year and Brand of the Year. I think it was basically in 2015, and their national awards, and I think we won it twice in a year. And I think at one point we were ranked number 8 in the UK in hospitality for as an employer. And I think that was really, you know, what spearheaded the brand and made it into the success it once was.
Yep. So you created Cotai, for those that are not familiar, out of adversity at the end of the global financial crisis. It expanded out to, I don't know, 20 or 30 sites throughout the UK. Have you got some strategy on creating these sort of activities out of adversity?
It didn't actually end up getting to 20, but I think we got to 14 in the end. But it was. But again, you know, for us, we did. So I had some business partners as well. We did our first restaurant right in the middle of the recession, and I think after that point, I kind of saw that in the recession we could expand probably a lot quicker than we potentially been able to do in a stronger market. And we picked up, you know, 4 or 5 blinding sites in those first couple of years. And I think, you know, again, we had a great team behind us, and I kind of tried to spearhead the group by just having great teams in great locations. And you know, ultimately for us, it was about, you know, being ballsy. To be fair, we took risks. We were you know, expanding at a rate of knots, and essentially ploughing everything we had back into the business continually. I think that's where we got to, and you know, we ended up doing very well, and you know, I think we got all the way up to Bristol and Bath and across to Winchester, and we had 5 down in Bournemouth alone. So you know, it was a really exciting time, trying to expand the brand. And I think we were pushed on a little bit by the fact that we had you know, some other brands that were trying to do the same thing as us, and yeah, essentially, basically, we you know, we pushed that brand to its limits, and you know, and as you know, that's what we do. And we just had a great team. I mean, I think at its heyday we had about 360, 370 staff. We did massive staff parties, and you know, there's a massive family of team that basically everybody kind of got involved in.
Yeah.
I think that's what, you know, won us Employee of the Year and what won us Brand of the Year.
Yep. So you ended up selling out in an MBO, what I believe. What advice would you give? And it's probably no surprise hearing you talk about staff. What advice would you give to other entrepreneurs who are considering a exit strategy via an MBO?
Yeah, well, so we did an MBO, and then I stayed on leave for 2 years, and I exited in early 2018. And again, you know, it was incredibly hard work, really hard work to get the business to where it needed to be. The due diligence that was involved. I mean, I think we went through 2 different audits, 3 due diligences. You know, we had to pick ourselves up after our first initial deal basically fell. And you know, we had to go back out to the market, and you know, we had to build a team, and I had to take a step back from the business, which was never the, you know, it's not your life and soul of the business, and then you're getting ready for a sale, and you have to kind of pull yourself back out of it and put in the structure for the ongoing business. And you know, it was incredibly tough, processes are not easy. If anybody says they are, then they're not necessarily talking the truth. But you learned a lot. I mean, you know, going through the various different you know, due diligences you learn so much about not only your business but also in corporate finance and stuff like that. But I think, you know, again, we had a really good team on that. Had a great operations director, and you know, and a great head office team. You know, going through that, and again, that was really key for us to basically have that team, and the restaurants basically were able to be kind of left to run whilst we did that process. But it, you know, I think the whole thing took nearly 18 months from kind of start to finish, if not longer. And then basically I stayed on for a Lee and then left. But yeah, it was a brilliant time. Very exciting. Yep.
So Andy, you've had some interesting things recent times, and through obvious reasons, you started the Wonky Table Group after COVID hit. What was the motivation behind trying to get an industry together, and what has it been its achievement so far?
Yeah, I'm not so sure it was the obvious thing. It was one of those things that basically just kind of came out of nowhere. You know, obviously in March we were, as an industry, kind of disjointed, haphazard. We didn't really know what was going on. I think I set up a group with a couple of friends who were also in the industry, and basically called it the Wonky Table. And yeah, I think it was a WTF moment, and you know, it was a bit more of a kind of just swapping just screaming matches with each other about, you know, everything was going on. But that really quickly grew. You know, a couple of friends of mine then basically said, "Oh, come on, add this guy in," and then this guy in, and then it ended up adding loads of people in, and it went from kind of 1 WhatsApp to 5 WhatsApps. You know, and it kind of really spread really quickly. There were other people around the country doing the same kind of thing for their regions, and then we linked in really, you know, quite highly into UK hospitality, and then started the, you know, kind of getting our MPs and our councillors and trying to basically organise some kind of response to it. And yeah, it's been amazing, really. I mean, it's one of those things where we're a very small cog in a big wheel, but we'd managed to be able to get letters, signed by MP. We managed to unite. I mean, probably my proudest one is that we united not only, the vast majority of hospitality down this area. I think we're about 550 hospitality businesses now, which is pretty massive. But I think the big one for me was, our kind of first letter that we kind of sent out, and that united every single major organisation in Bournemouth, which was a kind of more key part. It wasn't just hospitality. We got the backing of the chamber, the bids, the council, every single kind of organisation, DMB, every organisation in the BCP conurbation signed that letter. And I think that's, this whole kind of, we're stronger together piece is really important. And I think one key is there at the moment, whilst it's needed, but I think it's also started to take a new direction now, which is more of it is now become, whilst it was a lobby group, it's an information group. My kind of key thing was, obviously I was getting a lot of information from kind of more higher tier sources. And I just felt that basically that needed to be shared and that needed to be given to people, and those local operators who potentially would never have received that information, I was able to kind of give it to them in a much more kind of bite-sized, quick bang WhatsApp. And I love the fact that basically it's very independent. It doesn't have a board, and it doesn't have a framework, and it doesn't have all of this thing. It's how hospitality are. We're mavericks, and I think it's a bit of a maverick group, which is nice. And I think it really, it's kind of pinpointed, hospitality down here, and it's given it an louder voice, and people will sit up and listen. We can shout about MPs, and actually they ended up coming back to us, and you're shouting at council, and they're doing stuff. And it's definitely a work in progress, and we've definitely tried to kind of work with everybody. But it's been really, really cool, to be fair, how it's kind of just kind of developed.
Yep. So Zimbray is your latest venture. What inspired you to do that, and where do you see that going in the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, well, Zims basically has been something I've wanted to do since 2014. We've got a kind of Baldwin, black or white, and one of my wife's best mates got married to a black Zimbabwean, and they had this wedding, and it was amazing. And then I've always wanted to basically kind of showcase Southern African food. Well, actually, to be fair, we want to showcase African food. It's the third largest continent on earth. It hasn't been showcased in a way that basically, and packaged in a way that basically people can enjoy. And that's been really, really cool, because you've got there's so much of there's so many food types on the continent that you can basically explore. I mean, we've got a small part at the moment. Southern African, whilst it is big, it's still a minuscule part of the whole African kind of continent, and it's really cool to be able to start playing with that food and that food type. And obviously, as you can see there, in the background there, the kind of color palette is lovely to work with. And yeah, I mean, I build brands, and I put people together, and we've been showcasing, being able to showcase, proper South African chefs and African chefs, and in a kind of eclectic environment with the music's amazing, and really nice to be able to put the brand together. And that's essentially what I do. Is what I did with Co. What I've done. And that's what I'll do with our, the next two. I'll have my little black book. And putting basically people together and creating brands basically kind of hopefully can stand the test of time, and people can enjoy and experience new flavors and kind of a bit more of the exotic.
Yeah. That's interesting. So I see you also do some strategic consultancy in the space. If you had one or two different choices of things that someone starting out a restaurant has to get right, what would be the one or two things that are not negotiable?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not a secret. I mean, a good restaurant has to have good food, great value, great atmosphere, and it's got to be served, with fantastic customer service. I mean, it is not hard, but actually it's very hard. So the actual, the simple core principles are pretty obvious. It's about 1,000, and it's not easy. You have to basically kind of get those four things to come together, and they're the pillars of your house essentially. And it is not easy to do that. It's not easy to basically to have all those four things working at the same place at the same time in tandem. And that's the key to success. It's the 100 other things that basically make each pillar that you basically kind of work on in the background that makes that happen. And it's the attention to we used to have a saying, it's the attention to a candle. It's the good night, it's the good night, it's it's that constant striving, and is your food good enough? And you have to keep on going. And with Co and with Usara and it's not right first time. It took us nearly probably 8 months with Zim to get it to the stage where we were really happy with the food content. Same with Kai, and the same with Nusara actually. And Nusara basically is taking Thai food to another level, and we are slowly just playing with that and tweaking it. And it's basically like imagine a DJ decks, and essentially basically to get that perfect sound, you're twisting every single knob, and that's how a restaurant operates really. Thousands of little knobs and little dials that you need to basically just kind of just turn and tweak. And once you've got it there, it goes like that, and that's it, it's done.
Yep. I'm constantly amazed, Andy. I've worked in many countries around the world and seen people like restaurant owners that do, in my opinion, they do three things that I wish they wouldn't do. And the first is that they ask you how the food was the minute you got a first mouthful, instead of asking the motivation question as to what motivated you to walk through my door today. The second thing they do is don't do any data capture, or they do it haphazardly. And then the last thing is that they rarely ever give you an invitation to return by some offer. What do you do differently along those three lines?
Well, what we as a restaurant, industry, we're really not very good at it. Let's be honest, and it's something that I continually look at. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because the motivational, that motivational piece, actually that the check back is one of the standard steps of service. You check back as soon as you possibly can, because that's your first step on essentially basically if there's something wrong, that's when you can solve it. If someone's dish is incorrect, or someone's missing something, or something's overcooked, or anything like that, you can catch it at that first moment. As soon as you go over to a table, you can have a fresh dish out very, very quickly, and people will enjoy their meal. If you leave it halfway through the service, you've lost that customer. And we basically we essentially say it's 60 seconds as you walk in the door, you need to be smiled at, and you need to basically be engaged with. I think from a data capture point of view, we are and we do our own bits and bobs. Obviously we have our reg diaries, etc., and stuff like that. I think GDPR has really hurt that, and I think a lot of us are looking at new and different ways of basically trying to engage customers, because the problem is trying to get customers to sign up to your databases has become a much more arduous process. And I think there's a lot that we can do. Actually, I'm consulting on a business at the moment that basically is looking at that. There's a lot of stuff that can be done and should be done better to kind of increase that. And some of the big boys do it well, but then actually you get the other side of the coin. We don't send out too many newsletters because actually it annoys people, and then your open rate is much less. Our open rate newsletters is incredibly high, but that's because we only send them pretty much every quarter, rather than one every week or one every month, or all the time. So I think for us it's little is much better. You'll get a much bigger open rate if you are not continuing to spam it. But again, I think, all of this has changed. I mean, our Instagram and our social is really key, and that's what we spend a lot of time on, and that's how we do our main amount of data capture. Our Instagram and social pages are really strong.
Yep.
And that's quite key for us to kind of keep going.
Yeah, interesting. So you're part of the Burnt Chef program, because, and one of the sections in our show is going to be on well-being. And so I was interested to read that you were involved in that.
Yeah, well, I mean, Chris, who sort of set up the Burnt Chef, is a friend, and he kind of asked me to get involved at the very beginning when he first set it up. And for me, basically, mental health is something that I've not experienced myself personally, as in myself, but I have experienced it in my family members, etc., and also in employees, and we've dealt with a lot of mental health issues over the years. And I think whilst you've had the Dorset Minds and the other kind of mindful groups, I think the Burnt Chef is really kind of focused on hospitality, and I think that's really key. And they kind of they get hospitality. I think that's where I'm trying to basically help guide them on, those general kind of ways they can just tweak things to be able to help. And for me, it's it's an important project for Zim and for Nusara and all of my new businesses going forward. And I encourage everybody in the hospitality industry to engage with the Burnt Chef. It's about raising awareness. It's about being able to understand when you have an issue in your restaurants with your staff, and I think it's really, really key for us to basically be seen to be quite front and center on that. Actually, I've recently just given Christmas presents to all of my management and head chefs of Burnt Chef jackets with Zim or Nusara logos on, so it's really key for us to kind of engage with those kind of programs.
Yep. So do chefs have the bad reputation that they deserve? Yes.
Most definitely. I mean, to be fair, it's an incredibly difficult job to do. It's hot. It's fast paced. It's stressful. And actually, to be fair, that is kind of like where the mental health piece comes in as well. And I've had knives thrown at me. I've had saucepans thrown at me. I've had people screaming at me. But actually, now we've got in both Nusara and Zim, actually, we've got a very, very level-headed, very professional teams, and that's actually really nice to see. And it's taken us a while to get there, but actually, there are great, people in the industry, and I think it's just about basically being able to kind of give them the ability to shine as well, and try to make their working hours. I mean, hospitality is a notoriously tough industry to be in. Let's be honest. But then, the people that are in it are there because they love it. Yep.
So you also work with the Peter Jones Academy, Andy, and everyone in the UK will be familiar with who Peter Jones is from Dragon's Den. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I did work for the Peter Jones Academy. It's I don't think it's currently going on anymore. But I've been a Virgin mentor. I'm a Virgin mentor. Peter Jones Academy. There was a couple of others as well that we've basically I've been part of. And essentially it's mentoring, so generally triage stuff. So normally I get thrown somebody basically who's either in a cash flow negative or is really struggling with some kind of certain area. And then I just kind of try and help them as much as I possibly can, and then send them back on their way. My consultancy company basically is, consults on brands. We do, there's quite a few brands in Bournemouth that, I'm not part of, but have built, through the consultancy network that I've done. But then also, it's also quite, kind of dark behind the scenes stuff where I'm basically just helping brands that, don't want me to be seen that they're helping them, and just need help on cash flow and on getting ready for sale, and or just on brands. I do quite a lot of it currently at the moment. Actually, pulled myself out most of them, and so I'll be looking for some more in the new year. But yeah, because Wonky basically kind of took over this year. But yeah, no, I mean, it's, and that's really fun. You know, it's quite interesting. You kind of sit there in the background and, you know, and just help kind of, you know, turn those dials for other brands.
So you seem to be an awfully busy guy, and I know you are. How do you relax?
This year, normally I build restaurants, seemingly, but no, do quite, I swim in the sea, which is probably my biggest one, with the surfing, whichever, or spending time with the family. I've got 2 small children, and so that's really nice, and just to be able to spend time there and just kind of relax. And yeah, I remember basically back in, God, it must have been 2015, we were, living in the middle of town. Everywhere we went out, it was, hi, how are you? You're all right, and I remember, going to go, and the whole of our dinner was spent some of his problems, and so I think we made a decision to kind of move out of town, and so we live out in the sticks, and that's kind of like where you retreat to, really. But yeah, it hasn't been a very relaxing year this year. We built 2 restaurants during 2 lockdowns. Created a massive triage, Wonky table network. It's been a stressful year. But I mean, I suppose that's what we do. That's what kind of drives me.
Interesting. Andy, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the program and to give a different perspective to people out there from the hospitality, which must, it's obviously been one of the hardest hit sectors globally. I really appreciate your time. Love what you're doing with the new places, and when we'll have to catch up in the not too distant future. But I really
definitely. It's been a pleasure. It's definitely the hardest thing for hospitality at the moment. It's trying to basically keep hospitality together, trying to pull as many of them along as possible is really key. There's going to be already has been a lot of kind of closures. There's going to be more. So it's kind of best advice is, I suppose, is just to hunker down, try and cash flow yourself out of it. Borrow money wherever you can, because the good times will come back around again. We're gearing up to hopefully be able to do some good expansion over the next couple of years. So for us, we're doing an equity raise, we're doing a loan raise. We're looking to kind of go for it. 2021, 2022, 2023. But it's kind of got to get through this bit first. So I think if you're still here in March, you've done a really, really good job.
Cool. Andy, thanks very much for your time, and I'm sure that the people out there will get some great hints and tips, and thank you for sharing.
Cool. Cheers. See you later.